So, this morning, um, today is Sunday, but tomorrow is Labor Day, the first Monday in September. And in America, we take time off from work to recognize the contributions and the accomplishments of our workers. According to History.com, the first Labor Day march occurred on September 5th, 1882, in New York City. Right? Now, the marchers were part of the labor movement that was protesting labor conditions and the working conditions in the country. And at that time, the average American worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, just to eke out a basic living. Pretty difficult times. And children, often as young as 5 or 6, were employed in the mills, the factories, the mines, and in most states, for a fraction of what their parents could earn. Right? But as unions and workers' rights made progress and headway to improve the working conditions, Labor Day became a national holiday in 1894. So we've celebrated it every year since then. They took a while for the working conditions to really get to something tolerable. Some might say it's still not, but for most people it is. And so we celebrate the workers, and we know how important it is. So this year, in the CSLs, we are focusing on living everyday wonder, and in September, we are appropriately focusing on work, wonder in our work. We have come a long way since 1894, so it's fitting that today the talk is good work, creating a life that matters. Now, wonder opens up work, and I think we're not quite there yet, Adam. So you can go to the black screen before this one. Yeah, go back one. Okay. Well, actually, can you just put the black screen up over here? Is that possible? And just do it side by side. Yeah, great. Okay, Michael, maybe you can help him out a little bit. Okay. All right, so, and make sure they can see me online, right? Yeah. On the Zoom? Can they see me on Zoom? Yes. Okay, great. Okay. So we're having, Adam is working, he's our new administrator, and he's doing, this is the first time he's been doing it solo. So it's a lot more challenging than you think it might be. So I really appreciate the quality of our recordings and our Zoom. So, but here we go. So what does wonder have to do with work? All right. So what about those days when we're at work and the tasks immediately in front of us appear to be anything but wonderful, right? On the worst days, drudgery might actually be a more apt description, right? So I suggest that in these moments, a sense of wonder, the presence of spirit can bring meaning and purpose to our everyday lives. Now, wonder shifts us from that laser focus with those green eye shades on what is immediately in front of us to a sense of connection with this moment, with the beauty and the intelligence and the power and presence of spirit, of the divine. And it's amazing to simultaneously experience the oneness of our existence, of all existence, at that with the conversation and task at hand. All right? It's like we're living with one foot in the spiritual world, and the world of oneness and miraculous possibilities, and the other foot in the physical world, where the infinite invisible is continuously pouring itself into form. Right? There's not really a separation. They're just two parts of the same whole. The two worlds are intertwined. Now, wonder is the cost of admission to a more authentic way of being, of belonging and behaving in the workplace, by empowering us to connect the dots of meaning and sharing and relationship. Now, more important is the imaginative space created by the words, I wonder. How many great new ideas and innovations began with those two words, I wonder. Right? I wonder how to do this better. Or I wonder how to make the world a better place. Right? We move beyond what has always been and beyond the limits that we and our human minds have set for ourselves. What is the greater possibility It all comes from the divine. It's already there in that possibility before it's manifest in the world and in our minds. Now, approaching our work with wonder gives it meaning and importance to great and minor accomplishments that seem to happen instantaneously. Or it could be to those expansive projects that build upon completing one small task after the other, after the other, after the other, to create this big expansive project. Working with a sense of wonder is like the difference between two laborers that are working side by side. When asked what they were doing, the first worker said, I'm laying bricks. I've got the concrete, put the brick on there, slap some more on there, put the brick, line it up nice and straight. But I'm laying bricks. The next worker, when asked what they're doing, they pause. They're still laying the bricks, but they pause. They look up and they say, I'm building a cathedral. Right? And so they see that bigger picture, that sense of wonder that their task is a part of this great, magnificent cathedral. Right? And I think at the end of the day, that second worker is going to have a much greater sense of pride and accomplishment in that moment and when they go to sleep that night. Right? But sometimes our egos only find work in ostentatious, major accomplishments. If it's not great, it's not worth my effort. Well, this attitude negates the importance of each step to create a great work. And with fall, right? And I might make sure that I have my... Is my lavalier on now? Yes, okay. So our ostentatious superstructure will fall without a solid foundation. Focusing on only the final product forgets the importance of the people who supported the team with nourishing food, jovial conversation, raw materials, transportation, maybe transportation or childcare, or simply cleaning up the workplace for the next morning. Right? It's all important. Working with a sense of wonder also unites the entire team behind the vision of the cathedral that they are building together. Wonder also creates a sense of awed admiration and respect for each member of that team and their contribution. Right? Each person on the team matters, as do you. As an example, one of the moments when I realized how important and valuable all work is by all people is when I was a new mother. So we brought home this wonderful, new, and fragile little baby, and required so much care and love and intensive focus, right? But love and life revolved around her. And so it took 2 or 3 weeks before I could actually get the baby changed and fed and dressed, and get myself fed and showered and dressed before noon. And I remember that feeling of victory when, it's not even noon yet and I'm ready to go, right? It's every time you would try, the baby would need to get fed again or changed again. And, if you're a mom or a dad, you probably remember those times. But it shows you how the small things are so important, right? Good work is how do we decide what is good work, right? So one step is that we recognize and develop the skills that show up in us, right? So what are our God-given gifts to share with the world? We are each creations that God has made out of itself. So we're a pretty special package that God has created, right? And the second step, though, is aligning ourselves with the divine, right? In the Old Testament, the early religious practices, it was centered around sacrifice and burnt offerings of a goat or a sheep or something like that. And so there was this whole idea of sacrifice. It's written up a lot in the Bible. But in Psalm 40, which is attributed to King David, he suggests that maybe it's not quite all that same. So David said in this psalm, "Many, O Lord my God, are the wonders you have done. Sacrifice and offering you did not desire, but my ears you have opened. Burnt offerings and sin offerings you did not require. I desire to do your will, oh my God. Your law is within my heart. So look through this. So our ears are open, so we're there to listen. And that law, which is always working, whether, whatever we think, we know in science of mind that what we think about is what manifests in our lives. So when we're listening to Spirit, and we know that, remember that that law is in our heart, then we are manifesting that divine stuff, that following that divine guidance. And so we want to align with Spirit within. And in this way, divine manifestation is always continually expanding, right, to something greater. And in John 10:10, Jesus explained that he came as a shepherd who would never, ever desert his flock, and his responsibility to guide and protect them, right? The shepherd is always there. Even in the tough times, even when the wolf is attacking, the shepherd is going to be there to guide and protect. And Jesus also said, I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. So it's not just getting through the day. It's about having it more abundantly. And this affects also our work, that our work is something greater and greater. Our work is the way that God manifests itself in the world. Right? Now, according to Thomas Troward, and this is what Michael read from this morning, having this abundant life means that for an individual who chooses to align themselves with the divine guidance within, who trusts the divine law to operate within their heart, then he said, their powers steadily increase, and they are led by the most unlooked for sequences of cause and effect, into continually improving conditions which enable them to do more and more effectual work, so as to make them a center of power, not only to themselves, but to all with whom they come in contact. So when we align our heart, our intentions, with the divine, with the universal mind and that law of cause-effect that's always working, our work is more and more effective. Consequently, our lives flourish. Right? That's the divine intention for us, to live life abundantly. When we act independently, we act alone without the benefit of the power and presence of the divine. Now, we might do pretty well, but the possibilities are infinite when we align with the infinite invisible. When we listen for that divine and guidance and set our intention as the highest and best for all involved, not just ourselves, then the outcome is also in the highest and best for ourselves, because there's all these other possibilities and synchronicities with other people that we don't even have a clue about in our conscious mind, but is known at the level of spirit. So let your life speak. In that reading from Parker Palmer this morning, when we let our life speak, it works at different levels. So the first level is have life speak to me, the inward journey. So we go in within to listen. And Parker Palmer said, before you tell your life what you intend to do with it, listen for what it intends to do with you. Before you tell your life what truths and values you have decided to live up to, let your life tell you what truths you embody, what values you represent. Right? So listening is how we learn what that divine intention is for us, the highest possibility for our life, for our work, and for our calling, if you will. It's not about, in our world, we want to hear about what's going on out here, and we read these great books, we admire this person, and sometimes we try to be a copy of this person we admire. But that's not who we are. When we take the time to quietly listen to our soul, to spirit, we may discover the very best parts of ourselves that we've overlooked or ignored or diminished. There's a great Hasidic tale that's retold by Martin Buber. And he says a rabbi named Suja died and went to stand before the judgment seat of God. And as he waited for God to appear, he grew nervous thinking about his life, and, he hadn't really done that much, right? And so he began to imagine that God was going to ask him, why weren't you Moses? Or why weren't you Solomon, or why weren't you David, one of those greats in the Jewish tradition? But when God appeared, the rabbi was surprised, and God asked, why weren't you Suja? It's so tempting to pattern our lives after others, only to discover, sometimes too late, that the only authentic choice is to be ourselves. Right? W.H. Auden said it well. We owe it, you owe it to all of us to get on with whatever it is that you are good at. Right? We're depending on you to be yourself. The best parts of us may be something that doesn't seem important because we think everyone can do that. Well, maybe they can't, you know. Not everyone is good at organic cooking or barbecuing, whatever your specialty is. Not everyone is good at being patient with children, teaching them math or how to play piano. Not everyone is good with computers. Not everyone is a good artist that can teach others how to let that expression out, you know, as Angelica was learned when she had all of that feeling. She used her creative outlets to allow it to center her and connect her with spirit, to be herself in that moment. You know, not everyone is good at making everyone in the room feel comfortable and welcome and joyful. That's a gift. And not everyone is good at just listening and being with someone when they need it. Each person has their special gifts, but they must pay attention and listen to see what they are. And Spirit Within always invites you to know the truth of who you are. Right? So this is the inward journey. Now the outward journey is letting life speak for us. And the word vocation comes from the Latin word vocare, or voice. Right? So our vocation is our voice speaking into the world. It's the manifestation part of our gifts of who we are. And after listening to that voice of Spirit Within, we share ourselves through our vocation. Thomas Merton said, discovering vocation does not mean scrambling towards some prize just beyond my reach, but accepting the treasure of true self I already possess. I already possess. So today is that day when we allow our lives to speak for us. And we're pouring that marvelous light that is always emerging from us out into the world. Right? There is no more separation or a life being divided between being ourselves and someone we're not. We're aligned with who we truly are. And when our lives speak for us, they speak words of purpose, intention, and wholeness. They're bringing into that allness that we have been called to be in the world. We're called to our own unique greatness. So speak for me the truth that has called me into being. Speak for me my name. Speak for me that which makes me extraordinary. Speak for me that others may hear the call of their lives, beckoning them beyond limitations, weaknesses, and mistakes. Speak for me the fullness of character, the passion, the joy, and the grace that paves a new way, a new path. May the wonder that drew us into this moment become light for our paths and bread for our journeys. And may it continue to speak to us, through us, and as us. My vocation, my voice, is a mighty work. It is woven of purpose and unbridled joy that supports us ever and always. Speak for me a life that matters. This is our vocation. And so we've gone the inward journey, we're speaking outward, and then we come to speaking new life. What is mine to do? How do we discover that? Well, it's a new life that's emerging from within us. In the book Practical Application of Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes said, God is ever going forth into new expression in every word we speak. Every thought we think is a further creative activity of God at the level of our expression of God. Right? We are allowing God to express through us. So Ann Dillard asserts that how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. So each moment, each day adds up to that great, magnificent gift that we are to the world. But it all begins with our intention. Listening to Spirit within to reveal who we are, and then choosing to live from the inside out so God can express itself as us. The integration of a work life and a life grounded in vocation actually align closely with the Buddhist concept of right livelihood, which they describe as encouraging engagement with compassionate activity and work to make a living that is both supportive and constructive in the world. Right? So to speak new life, you must be willing to engage wonder as a lens to determine how your work must become meaningful, supportive, and a spiritual practice. We talk about praying without ceasing. We talk about reading sacred books. We talk about singing or something like that as a sacred practice. But work is actually a sacred practice if it is part of that flow of Spirit in the world. When you have those moments when you're just in the flow and you know that you're one with everything, it's an amazing feeling, having that one foot in the physical world and the spiritual world at the same time. And when you're doing your work, your unique work, that's what it feels like. This is how you create a life that matters. To speak a new life, you must become you. Right? So, how do we put all of this together? Discover our personal good work. We begin with a sense of wonder. We let our life speak to us as we make that journey inward to listen to and align ourselves with the guidance of Spirit that speaks from our hearts. Right? We know that the law is in our hearts. And then we let our life speak for us as we journey outward in that world of vocation, our voice. And finally, we speak new life when we discover what is mine to do. To put all of this in practice, it starts with taking time to listen. Rumi said, there is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. It's just take that time to be still and listen. Starting our day with it's just a few minutes. Ideally, it's going to be longer when you have time to meditate and go beyond, all those thoughts whirling around, let them calm down. But even if it's just a few minutes, it's amazing what starting at that point of connection will do. And so it's easy to believe that we are living the life that we're supposed to be living when we're coming from our heads, even when we're not. But taking that time to listen will call us back to the truth of who we are. In his poem, Ask Me, William Stafford wrote, "Ask me whether what I have done is my life." His point is that we may be living in response to these outward circumstances rather than inward desire. And when this happens, we must listen to our life to find that center point within. So during this month, I suggest that you dedicate time individually to listen to your lives and bring forth the signs and messages revealed as a sign of your individual renewal and of our community renewal. In the ministers' listserv, when they're talking online with each other, there's so many of us that are coming out of this time where we've been so inward and life has been so changed and we're disconnected physically from being with people. And as we come back out, we find the world isn't the same that we left. People are not the same. They're not in the same places. So there's something new that's ready to emerge. There's always chaos before there's something new. So what is it? Take that time to listen. And so I suggest that you take some time to journal. Journal with this question, maybe more than one day. And the question is, are you living the life you imagined? If you are, how so? Celebrate it. And if not, how would you like to live your life? And be courageous, right? Think, well, maybe I could let go of this. Maybe it was part of my life, but maybe it's time to release it. What could the greater possibilities? What is that nagging feeling inside? What if I listen to it? Maybe it's Spirit suggesting that it's time to go through a new door or go around the corner or see something that's right in front of me. I haven't seen before. Right? So let's remember to take the journey within and listen, take the journey without, and to make sure that we are expressing that new life that is ours to give. So let's take this to prayer. So as we go within, we find ourselves being called to that place where Spirit dwells. It's a place that's always ready for us. It's a home within our hearts where Spirit dwells. And as we set down any thoughts or worries that we have going on in our minds, it's like taking the knapsack off and putting it down and taking a break and taking this time for ourselves. And so we listen. And as we come into this place, we remember that the truth of us is that we are one with Spirit, the Spirit that is everywhere present, that is the truth of all life. And as we let go, any feeling of resistance, any separation between us and the one is now dissolved. And there is this feeling of being one with life itself. One with all that is around us and within us. And there is that space that opens up that is this infinite knowingness, this infinite love, this infinite being. And it is good. And so as we ask, what is ours to do? Spirit gently and lovingly says, my beloved, it is to be you. It is to be you. You are a part of me that I love dearly. You are a part of me that is like no other. And so I support you and love you to be all that you are. Every moment, the power and presence and guidance of Spirit is always here. So let go and let God and be yourself in this moment. And as these new ideas of this expanded world come forward, there is this feeling of freedom and going beyond limits and the way things have always been, and there is something new. It is like seeing those new flowers that come up in our flower beds in the spring, or when we plant something new that we've brought from the nursery. And it is nurtured with sunlight and water and good soil, nutrients, and our word as we speak and bless it. And it is good. And so we gladly and gratefully share ourselves with the world. And we rejoice as we see others stepping up to share themselves in a unique and wonderful way. And together we create that world that is the highest and best for all people. It is a world where love is the rule. It is a world where relationships start from oneness, from togetherness, and anything else that would come from fear or neglect or selfishness is dissolved and left behind, because love is the one power. And it transforms the world, our families' worlds, our communities' world, our nation, our leaders, indeed the whole planet and the whole universe. Our work is to share who we are. And as we do, the world shares itself back. It is all God and it is all good. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. And as we release these words, we know that it is already done and even greater. And together we say, and so it is.